Hey kids, Mr. Bullens here. Seems a little strange not to be doing science, but we do need to get in some social studies, and I think I'm going to try to use Wednesdays to do that. So I'll post your social studies topics on Wednesdays unless things change. So let's go ahead and get into our first topic, and obviously as you can see from the slides here, it is Native Americans. And hopefully by the end of all of this, you will be able to compare the lives of American Indians, Native Americans, to your own life in order to describe major similarities and major differences. Okay, that's what we're going to look at there, being able to describe the differences and similarities between our two lives. Let's go ahead and start digging into a little bit the very, very beginning of, just to skim the surface of Native Americans. I know a lot of people might think, we've heard Christopher Columbus, he discovered the United States. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and he discovered the United States. That might be fantastic for Columbus, but someone had discovered the United States well before that. And people lived here, and it wasn't called the United States. It was just a lot of land, but we're referring to the United States. People lived here. And we call these people Native Americans. The first people to live somewhere are called indigenous people. So they were indigenous to the United States. That means they were the original settlers. So I know that when we're going to talk about that, obviously pretty soon, we're going to talk about the settlers. We're going to talk about the colonists. True, they were settlers, they were colonists, they settled colonies, that's fine, but there were people here before that. The Native Americans are the indigenous people of the United States. They were here first. Sometimes you might hear Native Americans referred to as Indians or American Indians. And we even said that at the very beginning of this in our I Can statement. This is because when Columbus had first landed in America, he thought he was in India. He was trying to get there anyway, so he thought he was in India. And so he called the local people that he saw Indians. And that name has stuck around for a long, long time. I think if we had to choose between the two names, I think Native Americans is probably a better term to use, Native Americans. So let's look at their social structure and how this might be similar to us, how this might be different than us, and how it might be a little bit of a blend of both. But social structure, it plays an important role in our society, and it also plays an important role in Native American societies. But what does that even mean? There weren't any written rules per se. They didn't have a giant document of rules. And they didn't have they had pretty intricate governments, but they weren't super confusing governments. But there were social rules that people were expected to follow if they wanted to live in the tribe. To put that pretty easily, you couldn't be some crazy, wild person that didn't follow the rules because no one wanted to be around you. And they wouldn't let you live in the tribe if you were some wild person that was always acting out of turn. You had to follow the rules. And although they probably didn't have this written down anywhere, and we don't have it written down anywhere at school, but do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Basically, treat other people the way that you want to be treated. I'm fairly certain the golden rule even played a part in society then. Now, they may not have said it exactly that way. And it'd be interesting to see if any of you in your writing that you're going to do has an idea of how they may have said that. But although there weren't anything written, they didn't have papers and documents for people to follow, and they couldn't break out a book and say, look, you broke, rule 2.3, section C. They didn't have that. People understood the rules. You don't walk into someone's tent and steal the fish that they just worked all day to go catch. That's an understood rule. I think we would understand that. Even if we were teleported in time back to then, we would understand, hey, if you've got to get up, you've got to help people clean, you've got to help people farm, you've got to help people hunt, you've got to help people fish, You can't just start walking around taking what you want. Basic rules of society. I'm going to let you do this a little bit more. I'm going to do it a little bit here, but you can take a look around while you're on Nearpod today. You can take a look around and see. Now, obviously, these are not, right? These are not original, but they are reconstructions of what houses may have looked like then. I know there are different types of houses, and I think the video touches on that. But you're welcome to look around the VR for a few moments and kind of take a look at that and kind of get an idea and a feel. Obviously, there's no parking lot back here back then. Probably more trees. But it's interesting to look at that and think about why they would have built this certain type of house in this area where they built a different type of house in another area. Tribes and clans. So at the highest level were the tribes or the nations. This is like an extremely large group of people, okay? Now they had their culture, they lived in the same area. That's what geography means. And they had the same language. And you might be able to see in the background here some of the tribes that are listed and some of the clans that are listed and where they may have lived. I think the closest thing to us is probably the Cherokee in North Carolina. That's the one I think that comes up the most in North Carolina. Maybe you know of another one that's a little closer than that, but that's the one that pops into my head. Within each tribe were smaller groups, and we called them clans. And typically, the members of the clans were related to each other. Each clan had its own symbol or its own spirit that gave the clan its name. So if you had like the Bear Clan and the Deer Clan and the Hawk Clan, obviously these things may have been influenced by their religion, by their culture, by their geography, and those types of things. Obviously, if you lived in like Wilmington, the chances of you being the Snow Clan are probably not very high, right? However, you may be the Water Clan if you live near Wilmington, North Carolina. That would make a lot of sense. If you lived in the mountains of North Carolina, your clan could be called the Bear or the Deer, the Hawk, maybe even Snow then too, because we do get some snow in our mountains. So it had a little bit of effect, but these were the people that were like related to each other. Chiefs and leaders. Leaders of the clans were called the chiefs. You can kind of see in the background here what an example of a chief might look like. They were chosen by the clan. Now, you'll read a little bit later on. They were typically chosen by the women. The women voted in who the chief was. They did not have complete power. It wasn't like they dominated everybody, but they were very well-respected people. And the clan typically followed their lead. They were very smart, very respected, very well-rounded people, and they had the entire clan's best interest at heart. So if they told, hey, we need to go hunting, and they told a bunch of people it's time to go hunting, typically the people would listen because the chief was the leader. Clans would have two different leaders, a civil leader and a war leader. Now, the war leader is pretty obvious what he does, right? He takes over during times of war, right? But your civil leader is one that guides the clan during times of peace. And so that person might have a little bit more influence over when we're going to plant the crops, when we're going to go hunting, when we're going to start fish, when we're going to go gather berries. And they may have more control over when we're going to build our homes, when we're going to move, because they controlled things when things were a little bit more peaceful. Villages and families. Clans were divided up into villages and families. Remember, those clans were like a whole bunch of people that were, loosely related. But then we divided them up into village and families. These groups played a more important role in the daily lives. Now, the clans they lived in the same general area, and you may live close to some of your aunts and uncles and cousins and things like that. But the families were super close, and you might have large extended families. So you might live with all of your cousins in one small area. I'm not saying they all lived in the same house, but they might live in one small area. For me, I have cousins that live very, very far away, and I have some that live very, very close to me. The ones that live very far away would be still part of my clan because we're still relatively close to each other. But the ones that live like right down the street from me would be a little bit more part of my clan. I'm a little closer to them. So it's kind of like living with all of your cousins in one simple area. I want to stop there. I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to let you stop on slide 9 as well. And then what I want you to do is go into your Google document And I want you to start writing into your Google document and give me an idea of what you think, just looking at the very beginning, the similarities and the differences are between you and Native Americans. I'm going to continue working in this document until we finish all of these, and then that final document will be something that will turn in at the very, very end of everything. But I will be grading it each time we come back and turn it in. So every time you add something to it, I'm going to give you a grade for social studies as we work on that. I hope that makes sense. If not, then send me an email or a Google chat, or chat with me in Google Classroom. Whatever you have to do, get in contact with me if you don't understand that. Again, there won't be any Zooms or anything today, so don't be asking me that all day, because the answer to that is no. You basically have this video, and then you have time to work. All right, kiddos, we'll see you soon, and looking forward to seeing my Thursday, Friday kids really soon as well.